In today's video, we're going to be taking a glimpse at some animals that were discovered or rediscovered in 2022. Kinda like this colorful fish found in the deep waters of the Maldives, and this dinosaur that's about to dethrone the T-Rex in the world of memes. But first, let's talk about a fish that people thought went locally extinct in Ohio. The small, long-head darterfish. Usually, we feel bad when we're proven wrong. I mean, it's a bit of a blow to the ego, you know, but on this occasion, fish management crews and wildlife specialists are probably jumping in glee. The small long-head darterfish was rediscovered in Ohio waters a couple of months back. It's a surprising encounter, according to the Ohio Division of Wildlife, given how the species hadn't been seen in the state for decades. Still, the organization officials saw this as a moment of celebration. On their official Facebook page, they did post, "Who dis?" Believe it or not, it's a long-head darter. Why are we so excited? Well, this striking creature native to Ohio was thought to be extirpated from the state. To clarify, extirpate is a word that refers to how a species is locally extinct but isn't completely gone from the planet. Sadly, little is known about this creature. Aside from its looks, biologists only know that it spawns between March and May and that adult longheads eat crayfish and mayflies. Tiny frogs. Everything we know about how a frog develops is about to be challenged. Scientists discovered 6 new species of frogs the size of a thumbnail in the forests of Mexico. The tiniest of which, the Crocostar candelariensis, is Mexico's smallest frog, measuring no more than 13 millimeters long. These newly discovered amphibians live in the moist leaf litter on forest floors and are referred to as direct developing frogs, which means that they don't undergo the tadpole stage as part of their life cycle. Instead, the frogs hatch from eggs in the perfect mini version of their adult forms. These hatchlings are believed to be less than 10 millimeters long, though scientists confess they aren't sure of the measurement as no one's ever seen these creatures hatch. Unfortunately, despite having only been recently discovered, these frogs are already microendemics thanks to habitat loss due to climate change, and also a deadly fungal disease that's taking out amphibian populations across the planet. Still, researchers are hopeful for this species' survival. They've identified vital areas where the frogs live and are striving to work with the Mexican government and NGOs to connect the sites. Popa Langur. Before anyone comes for me right now with pitchforks, and yes, I know this creature was discovered in 2020, but it's not unusual for a delay between the date of discovery and the announcement. Even the World Wildlife Fund says so. They're the ones who announced the Popa Langur's existence in January of this very year. The Popa Langur is a new primate species found in the jungles of Myanmar. It's a type of monkey with a long tail, rings around its eyes, and a crest of fur on its head. Experts from the London Natural History Museum said in a news release that there's only about 200 to 260 left, making the species already at risk of extinction. After extensive analysis of historical records and travel notes, the Popas are believed to have once been widespread across central Myanmar, though now only a few groups survive. Currently, the remaining monkeys only live in 4 isolated populations, the biggest of which is on Mount Popa, which is home to more than 100 langurs. Because of this, the study urged international agencies like the IUCN and the CITES to add the Popas to their list of threatened species. The Iridescent Snake. In a paper published in the Copia, researchers described a new species of snake discovered in the Hung province of Vietnam. This species is part of a rare genus of burrowing snakes that branched from the snake evolutionary tree earlier than other groups. This makes their looks and behaviors different from their more commonly known cousins. This new species is called the Acalanus zugorum. When the team first saw it, though, on the way to a survey site, the scientists didn't immediately know what they had found. "There was a really exciting moment," said one of them. "The specimen looks very different, so different in fact that we didn't know immediately what it was. In 22 years of surveying reptiles in Vietnam, I've collected only 6 odd-scaled snakes," said another researcher. This is one of the most poorly studied group of reptiles. The group brought the specimen to the Smithsonian, where they sampled and sequenced its DNA and added it to the biorepository. After, they sent it back to Vietnam for it to be cataloged. The team hopes the discovery will motivate people to pay more attention to conservation efforts, especially given the ecosystem's multitude of threats. The rock gecko. A team of researchers discovered 2 new small ground and rock-dwelling gecko species belonging to the genus of Dixonius. If the term Dixonius doesn't ring a bell, sometimes they're also called the leaf-toed geckos due to the adhesive pads at the end of their toes resembling a tiny ginkgo leaf. Oliver Pauwels, curator of vertebrates at the Royal Belgian Institute for Natural Sciences, had lots to say about the discoveries. For the species under the classification of Dixonius, he said, "We found the first new species on a hill just a few kilometers from Cha'am Beach. This hill houses a famous Buddhist temple called Wat Nikam Wachararam, visited by thousands of travelers every year. Not exactly a place where you imagine finding many unknown species." Whereas for the Dixonius, Paulo said the second discovery was even more surprising. It was first found by Montry in a garden within a few meters from his office in the city of Ranong, where he had been working for several years already. These new geckos are the 10th and 11th species in their genus, bringing their number of those native to Thailand to 5. Rose-veiled fairy wrasse. In the depths of the Maldives lies a secret. Within the Twilight Zone, a new breed of fish emerged, one that is called the rose-veiled fairy wrasse. Okay, yeah, I know, I was trying to set that up to sound menacing, but it didn't really work out. Either way, it may not be that scary, but heck, it is pretty. What we previously thought was one widespread species of fish is actually 2 different species, each with a potentially much more restricted distribution. Yikai T, a University of Sydney doctoral student, said, "This exemplifies why describing new species and taxonomy in general is important for conservation and biodiversity management. Sadly, this fish could be quickly exploited. It was already being commercialized before it was given a scientific name. So much for letting it go and free for now." Ivory-billed woodpeckers. After several decades of absence, a particular bird returns from the dead. The ivory-billed woodpecker is so rare and undetectable that the US government declared it extinct last year. However, it seems they called it too soon, as just this April, an article claims the species is, in fact, still alive and terrorizing trees in the forests of Louisiana. That's according to a team of scientists who committed to a 3-year quest to find the elusive bird. Their research is yet to be peer-reviewed, but it's the most development that anyone's had in years since the woodpecker's last sighting in 1944. Steve Latta, the director of conservation at the National Aviary in Pittsburgh, said that each team member had encounters with the ivory-billed woodpecker. He even went as far as to say that they often heard its call. He further shares that he also saw the bird fly upwards in front of him, showing its distinctive colors. The size and markings, apparently, are strong evidence that it's not just one of its relatives, such as the pileated or red-headed woodpecker. Should this be true, it looks like our trees have one more species to look out for. Golden bear. The Tremarctos aurantus are shy creatures. They're so shy that little is known about them, but still, they're keystone species of the Andean ecosystem. Why? Because they're the only bears native to South America and are considered an umbrella species, meaning protecting them would also benefit other species in their ecosystem. Sadly though, they're listed on the IUCN Red List right now, as they may become extinct due to habitat fragmentation and human-bear conflicts. While observing up to 4 of these furry animals daily, researchers also reported something else. As they did their fieldwork, they spotted a golden bear that happened to have an uncanny resemblance to the famous Paddington bear. Strangely, the children's character is also said to come from Peru. Perhaps the author saw one back then and decided to use it as inspiration? To see a real-life golden bear with your own eyes is an amazing experience, said Fanny Cornejo from Stony Brook University. Still, further investigation is required before we can argue that the new mysterious and cute species are roaming about. The Tapir Frog. Researchers in Peru discovered and described a new kind of microhylid frog. The frog, identified as part of the genus Synapturnus, has a snout length of 17.9 millimeters. It also has a stout body and a head that is slightly wider than it is long. However, this critter with chocolate brown smooth skin and small eyes nearly gave researchers a run for their money. These frogs are really hard to find, and that leads to them being understudied, said Mrs. Thompson, co-author of the study. The frog, with the scientific name of Synapturnus donta, otherwise called the tapir frog, was found to inhabit under the roots of trees as bushes. This led to them being classified as a burrower, which explains its body type that happens to be favorable to burrowing in ecosystems in which it was discovered. Honestly, that's a little surprising to hear, given how it's the size of a quarter. From everything we've learned, though, I think some of you are wondering if it's truly new since the authors were able to explain its abilities substantially. But don't worry, they ran DNA analysis. It's a new species. Rare leafhopper. In the Ugandan rainforest, a new species of insect was found. It belongs to a group so rare that its closest known relative was last seen more than half a century ago in 1969. The Phalotris kilboensis, a class of leafhopper, was discovered by a British scientist doing fieldwork in a national park in western Uganda. This insect has a metallic sheen with a pitted body surface. Like other leafhoppers, the male's reproductive organs are partly shaped like a leaf. These guys feed on plant sap and are preyed on by animals such as spiders, beetles, and wasps. Sometimes birds decide to nip on them too. So how does the scientist who found it feel? Well, they did discover a new species, one from a rare genus, but here's what they had to say about that. "It's the first time I've ever discovered a newly described species. Personally, it's one of those things you aspire to do as an entomologist, and I've managed to do it now," said Dr. Alvin Helden. "I'm happy for you, Doctor. May you find more new critters in the future." New tarantula. This species was actually discovered by a YouTuber. Jojo Sipawat, also known as Zongtum Sipawat, is a wildlife YouTuber with over 2.5 million subscribers. One day he found a new genus of tarantula. And how did he find it? Well, he came across it near his home in northwestern Thailand. Not something you'd really expect to find. You'd think he went on an expedition to uncover a new species, but no, just simply walked out his door. Either way, he decided to collaborate with arachnologists Dr. Naran Chomphapwang and Choalit Songsang Chot to describe and name the species. Although there are plenty of tarantulas in Southeast Asia, this is the first time a species has been found to only live in one type of tree. This new critter, specifically, lives inside the stalks of bamboo. It uses the holes made by other animals or those naturally produced by the process that causes bamboo cracking. Because of this unusual behavior, this tarantula is now supposedly Thailand's rarest tarantula. As for its name, it's called Taxinus bambuus, after Thai King Taskin the Great, who governed Tak province in the 18th century. Nannaria Swiftae. Taylor Swift has hundreds of awards and nominations under her belt, but now she can add having a millipede named after her too. Derek Hennon, the lead study author and researcher at Virginia Tech in Blacksburg, Virginia, is a major fan of hers. So much so that he decided to name one of the 16 newly described millipede species Nannaria Swiftae. Nannaria Swiftae, also known as swift-twisted claw millipede, plays a vital role in its ecosystem. How's that though? Well, they release nutrients into the soil of forest floors. As they eat decaying leaves, the millipedes break down the organic matter, aiding decomposition. They measure about 18 to 38 millimeters long and have bumpy white legs and brown or black bodies with red, white, or orange spots. Sadly, not much is known about them aside from their physical characteristics. This is because these arthropods completely bury themselves in soil, making them quite challenging to find and capture, said the researchers. Still, it doesn't bug them out too much. They seem happy that the millipedes at least have an excellent habitat to live in, judging from a tweet that Hennon posted. Hey, good news for this entry at least. Phalotris shawnella. Snakes. Nature's present given to us all in its slithering glory. If only they didn't have a reputation for striking people, maybe I'd hold the one folks take photographs with at the zoo. Anyway, this new species of snake was found in Paraguay. While it is non-venomous, it's still very, very intimidating. It belongs to the Nostis group, which only includes 6 other species. Jean-Paul Brillard, the study's co-author, found the snake by chance while digging a hole at Rancho Laguna Blanca. It's hard not to notice it, especially its bright red body with a yellow collar and black lateral band. They also said it's endemic to the Cerrado Forest in the San Pedro department in northeastern Paraguay. Unfortunately, like most entries on this list, this Paraguayan endemic snake is endangered and needs urgent conservation action. This species actually only has a few individuals that comprise its group, as they exist in less than 5 localities. That number continues to decline due to the quality of their habitat. Angustopila psammion. Snails, those little slimy creatures that like to traverse our gardens despite the risk of them getting squished under the paws of our beloved pets. Well, this species is probably going to have to worry about getting squished by everything and everyone else. Why is that though? Well, they're as tiny as a grain of sand. This snail was found by scientists in large numbers on the wall of a cave in northern Vietnam. So how'd they come to notice these things given how small they were? Well, unlike some discoveries on this list, this one was found pretty intentionally. The study's authors collected sediment samples from expeditions done in Southeast Asia. They figured the geology of the continent supported a wide diversity of snails and suspected that there were some undiscovered species around. Also, they were right on the mark. After mixing soils into the water, researchers skimmed off the material and placed it under a microscope, where they found the snails, or their shells at least. They remain mysterious, but the scientists aren't ready to give up. They want to know more about this creature, especially due to its size. Prehistoric dolphins. A new study by scholars from the University of Zurich shows that 2 newly discovered species of dolphins lived on our planet. Alright, so some of you may have noticed the strange wording. I mean, newly discovered is loose. These dolphins did live on our planet just 20 million years ago. Yeah, it's a bit confusing there. They're prehistoric aquatic animals that have been unidentified until now. Thanks to the puzzle-like hints from fossils, our experts were only recently solved. After researchers analyzed about 300 fossils from the ancient Swiss environment, the team was able to identify 2 species of dolphins that are distinct from the ones that we know. These are the Kentriadontid and the Squalodolphinid dolphins. Through microcomputed tomography, the scholars were able to create a 3D model of the prehistoric dolphin's body, surprised to discover connections to the species have with the ocean-based dolphins and sperm whales that still exist today. Now it's time for the day's best pick. If you thought science had discovered every dinosaur there was back then, you're wrong. Paralitherizinosaurus japonicus. Okay, I know it's not the same dinosaur as the one in the thumbnail, but listen, that one's fake. There's no clone dinosaurs that are about to roam our planet. The video that's making rounds online is a specimen made for the Jurassic World expedition. And that said, here's something real. A new type of dinosaur that scientists uncovered in Japan. Researchers named this newly described species as the Paralitherizinosaurus japonicus. They found its fossil in Nakagawa, Japan, where it was encased in a concretion. It has scissor-like hands to use as weapons, however don't be fooled. These guys weren't about slashing other creatures' throats. Instead they used their finger knives to cut vegetation. Yeah, they're sort of like Therizinosaurus, terrifying to look at, but for the most part, generally harmless unless you peeved them off. According to the study, these beings also lived during the Cretaceous period about 145 million to 66 million years ago. Wanna know something even better? This is the first fossil of a dinosaur in the Tyranosaur group found in Asia. See, if you guys were here during the beaches video, I told ya. Concretions are useful for budding archaeologists. Ocucaje Predator. When we talk about whales these days, we often imagine gentle and sometimes helpless beings that get stuck at beaches often. If they're like their ancestors though, we'd all probably act like headless chickens running every way to survive. Researchers digging in the Ocucaje Desert uncovered the skull of a huge marine predator believed to be the ancestor of modern whales and dolphins. These guys are said to have knife-like teeth and are about 39 feet long, gliding underwater like serpents. While there's no scientific name yet, these analyses say it's a new species of Basilosaurus, a ferocious marine mammal that lived 36 million years ago. For now though, it's called the Ocucaje Predator, or Ocucaje, I don't know how the heck that's pronounced. It was a marine monster, said Rodolfo Salas, founder and director of the paleontology department at the Museum of Natural History. When it was searching for its food, it surely did a lot of damage. I can imagine given its size and monster-like chompers. Giant tortoise. I know giant tortoises have been around for a while, which probably gave scientists enough time to study them. Surprisingly though, researchers found a new species of Galapagos giant tortoises that have lived under our nose for over a century. Apparently, the giant tortoises living on the island may not be the species they're thought to be. Experts conducted a genetic analysis of living and dead giant tortoises and discovered that the dead ones appear to be from a different lineage from those surviving today. Currently, they're both called Chelenoides chathamensis, but once confirmation is given about the dead animals, the giant tortoises of today will be given a new name. It's sad to realize the discovery is less about the survivors and more about those already extinct creatures, though. But that didn't dampen Ecuador's spirit. Their environment minister was too happy to find out their archipelago housed a breed that had yet been described by science. I don't know how to feel about that, but I suppose after all is said and done, we gotta try our best to ensure that these living giant tortoises don't quickly follow their recently discovered and deceased cousins. Diegoaelurus vanvalkenburghae. The Diegoaelurus vanvalkenburghae was something you wouldn't have wanted to come across had you been a creature back in the prehistoric age. With serrated teeth that acted like scissors to shear flesh in an all-meat diet, this hyper-carnivore could have easily torn you apart. According to scientists, this hunter roamed the woodlands of California and is one of the earliest saber-toothed animals to have evolved. How so, you ask? Well, according to Dr. Ashley Paus, the study's co-author, while a carnivorous diet isn't uncommon in predators today, back then mammals were still only figuring out how to survive on meat alone. In a way, the D. van Valkenburg was a pace-setter in the diet world. A Aside from that, though, their teeth were also a significant advance in their evolution, as nothing like that had existed before. This also allowed them to have hunted prey larger than 1.2 meters. Researchers also think it's possible this predator lived alongside others of its kind. Ugh, after seeing them back then, you could only hope to hide in the dark since they could chase you wherever you go. Before we move on, I've got a little challenge for you that'll take 5 seconds to complete. So here's the deal. You just leave a like on this video, smash that subscribe button and hit the notification bell, and you will get 25 years of amazing luck. Try it, it really works. Guemesia, ochoai. Move over, T-Rex, your days of being the king of dinosaur memes are over. We thought T-Rexes had small arms, wait until you see Guemesia, a recently discovered unusual dinosaur described as armless and tiny-brained. Oh geez guys, that is just rude. This newly discovered dinosaur is a member of the Abelisauridés, a group of carnivores that roamed what is now South America, Africa, and India during the Prehistoric Age. Scientists say that it's also possible that the ochoai is a close relative of the Abelisaurids, however with two key differences. The ochoai lacks horns and it lived in northern Argentina, where its skull was found far away from where most Abelisaurids lived. That said, don't let its funny small arms make you think they're incapable hunters. Quite the opposite, actually. They preyed on long-necked titanosaurs, a feat given the latter's size. But what about the tiny brain thing, you may say? Well, about that. They discovered the ochoai skull is about 70% smaller than its relatives, making the brain case literally small. Still, researchers think perhaps the sample they found is juvenile, so it'll take a while before we could legitimately use that part in a meme. Oh well. Later, everybody.